First thing I do before I edit anything is I make sure that my display settings are set to 80% of brightness. There are no check boxes for adjusting the brightness automatically, true tone, no night shift, anything like that. We don't want any colors to be distorted, just like when we were setting our camera settings on our phone. I also calibrate my display. If you're just going off a basic display profile, usually under color, I use the Adobe RGB 1998. It tends to be pretty standard across computers, but you can research your own computer settings and find out what works best for you. And then I'm going to be demonstrating with Adobe Photoshop. Keep in mind that there are open source programs that you can use instead. One of the main ones is GIMP. Let's see, so before I start actually editing the photos, I do set my workspace background to a bright white. I just select a custom color, and then I go in and I just type in 6Fs, and that is generally a bright white that works for me. It helps sort of eyeball the relationship between the paper, the foam core, and this workspace background, so I can tell what those colors are. And so this is the lighting setup that we finished with the DSLR camera. This is our more controlled lighting setup. And having the print in front of me at the moment, what you guys can't see is that this setup actually has the more accurate lighting. It represents the colors more accurately on my print as opposed to what the phone app, camera app that's pre-installed was giving. So to alter this color, if this is what you're using, you can go into Filter, go to Camera Raw Filter. You can also just use Camera Raw too. This is just quicker. And then for the iPhone app, camera app anyways, I find it pretty quick to just increase the temperature to 10 and then pull the tint into +5 magenta range. If you're using the camera raw filter, you can just set to daylight settings, and that should also bring it to this. Okay, so now we've got our color corrected a little bit more. We're going to adjust the curve setting. So it's just down here. There's a couple of places you can find it too. I'm just going to speed through this. So we've got curves. And then you can leave it on the normal setting if that works for you. I often will put it down to luminosity. It helps this histogram and my adjustments to it just affect the lighting rather than the colors and saturation and things. So, and you can think of curves as sort of Photoshop taking all of the brights and darks and things in your print or your image and slicing it up into sections, I think it's about 255 different sections. And so what it's showing you is where most of your information is. Most of it's right here in the brightness area. And so I'm just going to shorten this a little bit. I'm just sliding it over. And so I have less of the scattered, sort of shadowy information. I'll do the same thing on this end. I'm not going to go all the way over here because that changes the color, right? I'm not going to just get rid of this entire bit of information. Instead, I'm just going to bring all of this little teeny tiny line that really isn't contributing much to the overall image. I'm just going to say that's not important. So I've established where my darks are and where my lights are. Next, I'll just pick a spot in the middle between the two endpoints, and then I will subdivide that further in half, give or take. This doesn't have to be perfectly spot on. It depends on the print itself, what's best for it, but this is in general a good place to start. And I just start to, so this is where it was about. I just lift straight up and just sort of adjust the brightness a little bit. And you can see live what's happening, and just keep keep your actual keep your actual print in front of you, like on the table or whatever, so you can actually see what's going on here and make sure it's not too dark. So to me, looking at my print, this area is reading much darker than I want. So I'm actually gonna raise this up a touch. I'm gonna slide this histogram over just a little bit more, or slide this point on the histogram over just a little bit more. And now this reads more accurately. It's subtle. The more you do it, the more you start to see and click, and this will go a lot faster for you. And then from here, you can start to see, zoom out, you can see where shadows are by looking at the margins around your entire print. And I use the dodge tool. You can increase the size, decrease the size. I'm going to set it to about here. And I have it set to adjust the midtones. And the exposure's on 8%, somewhere between 5 and 8 works. And what I'm going to do is just lighten up the shadows. And I've made the size of this tool bigger, smaller, because I'm basically going off of the shadows down in the foam core. I'm not going off of my actual print because it's harder to tell what's even and what's not even. And I only just gave it a few passes, and this looks even enough. I don't want to go too far with it because then I'm starting to change the representation of my print. So this is good. Maybe a little brighter there. And from here, I'm going to crop. So I can crop in if I'm archiving this work just for myself. It's nice to leave the outside edge, or I can just crop right over the outside edge, and I can come in as close or as far apart as I want, sort of your preference. And I like to include the signature. You do not have to. You can also choose to crop in tight to the image itself, like that. This is what the original file looked like before we edited it. Just sort of comparing across the two different apps. So this is with the Lightroom app where we were able to set the white balance to the foam core that's right here, this little area, compared with the phone app that comes pre-installed where we really can't set white balance very easily. Maybe some other phone apps, they let you do this, but at least on the iPhone it doesn't for now. But this is so much more blue, and it was hard to edit it compared with this one, where I trust these colors. Like, they're not as accurate as, say, this with the DSLR and our own lighting setup where we had no ambient light whatsoever. So this would be like plan A, plan B, backup. Like the pre-installed app is fine for some things, but I think it tends to not be as accurate for coloring. So you can brighten it up to the histogram levels. Bring this in a bit, not too far. It might have been a little too far. Micro adjust as needed. Kind of playing with some of these peaks. And the nice thing about curves is, see how there's two peaks here? If I want to set two different points, I can. I can maybe increase these ones or decrease them depending on what I think looks most accurate. And then this point I can also increase or decrease depending on what makes sense. And they don't have to go the same direction. Like, this can go down and this can go up, depending on what it is you're shooting and how it's reading in terms of color, light, and all those things. So go through and do that. Merge that all together. Now you can decide if you need to dodge. So I think I want to hit a little bit over here and over here. I'm avoiding that central section because if you remember, this area we had filled in with our reflector on the top portion, so it should be pretty even. Looks pretty good to me. Maybe a little bit more here, touch more there. And then we can crop. So you can choose to crop in to the background, or excuse me, to the decal edge, or you can crop in a little closer, like that. And it looks like this might be a little on the crooked side, so you can kind of adjust, just like that. The controlled lighting setup, I'll just breeze through this pretty quickly. I'm not going to adjust the color on this one, but I am going to adjust the curves, and just reminding myself I'm going to go into the luminosity setting rather than normal. I don't want the colors changed. Increase the brightness. Right, set that midpoint. Subdivide. Create this S curve. Micro adjust from here so it reads as accurate to my print as possible. And this reads pretty well. Okay. And then from here, I'm going to adjust and edit out those magnets. So I just use the spot healing tool. And you notice right now it's really small. I'm just going to increase it so it accommodates that, and just click it. It's pretty easy. The magnets oftentimes don't even matter if you're cropping in, you know, tight like this, like the magnets were out here. It really only matters if you were planning to show the entire print. So that's editing. Good luck, you guys.